Colleagues, today in the Russian Arctic, we develop deposits of oil, natural gas, metals, other mineral resources. We will continue large-scale geological exploration here, primarily within the framework of the federal project called Geology Revival of a Legend. However, the task is to use this rich resource base in order to open in-depth processing facilities here. While preserving the unique Arctic nature, we need to come up with high value-added products in petrochemicals and the gas-to-chemicals industry, in the rare earth metals, and so on. One example would be a center for large-capacity marine installations facility in Belokamenka, where they localize the LNG technologies, and we use our own best practices. I would like to bring the attention of the colleagues from the government and regions. You need not only to suggest, but also to effectively fine-tune the instruments used to support investment and business activity in the Arctic. And this includes tax benefits, administrative preferences, infrastructure, preparation of land, and so on. Among other things, I remind the colleagues on the need to strictly meet the plans on gas infrastructure development in the Murmansk Oblast. It should be completed before the year 2030, so this task is still on. And of course, we need to develop a very promising area such as tourism. The North, the Arctic, are a unique concentration of natural, historic, spiritual monuments. It possesses a very rich cultural mix. Annually, more than 1 million tourists visit the Arctic to get exposed to its landscapes, to see the northern lights, to do some Arctic fishing and ride dog sleighs, and, to travel to the polar archipelagos. The number of tourists is on the rise. Respectively, new projects spring up in this area, such as the Arctic Tourism Center, focusing on mountain skiing in Yamala-Nenes Autonomous District, or hot water resort and year-round hotel complex in Karelia. I'd like to ask the federal governments and the regions to support such initiatives that open up new facets of the Arctic, and they help boost interest to this region. I also suggest that we think of including it in a federal project called Five Seas and the Baikal Lake, the development of the touristic infrastructure at the White Sea. To open up the Arctic for the mass-scale tourism, accessibility becomes crucial, all the way from repairing and building roads to developing air transport. Let me remind you that we extended the subsidized air travel program for the Arctic cities. Last year, about 800,000 passengers availed of this opportunity. This year, the subsidized tickets are available for more than 70 routes. However, airports of the far north, especially small airports, are in need of revamping. In the coming years, within the framework of a relevant national project, we will upgrade 16 airports in the Arctic zone, including in Salikard, Arkhangelsk, Naryan-Mar, and Vorkuta. Overall, our objective is to maintain a well-developed system of airports in the Arctic, all the way from large and medium-sized airfields to small landing spots. This is also necessary to ensure the year-round accessibility of settlements and the operation of aeromedical evac units. Dear friends, a key, integral goal of our plans is to improve the quality of life for people living here, to ensure modern conditions for the study and work, for leisure and bringing of children in this harsh region that lures people with amazing forests. On many occasions, I talk to people and the northerners, and both those who were born here and who came here, tell me that the north, lures people, and people have their hearts chained to this land. As you may know, master plans for the Arctic zone agglomerations are ready, and they span not only major cities like Arkhangelsk and Murmansk. Master plans apply to Kirovsk, Kapatiti, and Monchegorsk in the Murmansk region, Kem and Belomorsk in Karelia, Vorkuta in the Republic of Komi, Bilibino, Pevek, and others in Chukotka, Naryan-Mar in the Donetsk Autonomous Region, Salikard, Labit, Nangi, Novy Urengoy in Noyabrsk in Yamonets Autonomous District, as well as Tixi and Naiba in Yakutia, Norilsk, Igarka, and Dixon in Krasnoyarsk territory. I would like to specifically thank the VEB Corporation and Dom.RF, who directly contributed to many of those master plans. A master plan is a comprehensive document of strategic and territorial planning. It's a long-term program of socioeconomic and spatial development for cities and settlements. We will use here state-of-the-art city planning solutions while maintaining the regional image of such settlements. And we will be guided by the suggestions of the residents and CSO, including those of indigenous peoples of the North. I'd like to remind the government that we need to accelerate the approval of the Arctic Master Plan implementation timeline. We should think about how to finance them. Also, we should think of a separate Arctic sections in our national projects and to launch a mechanism to bring in business community, strategic investors who work in the Arctic to help implement those master plans or want to work here. Also, I'd like to ask you to think about setting up a special centers of excellence where municipal and regional officials would upgrade their skills in terms of urban development. They would be exposed to the best practices in master planning. Now, we've launched the national competition on creating comfortable urban environment. The winners are eligible for budget support. Now, I suggest that we should provide additional allocation under this competition from the federal budget. We've just discussed this with the colleagues from the government and the Ministry of Finance. I will not give you the ultimate figures, but this allocation should be set up and such support should be provided so that the colleagues addressing these objectives would have more opportunities to beautify their embankments, develop their walking areas, build playgrounds, parks, and so on. And separately, I'd like to ask the government to extend the program for the military stations innovations, restricted access administrative units where our military and their families live. Such a renovation program should be active at least up until 2030 with the annual financing from the federal budget of at least 10 billion rubles. I would like to stress that this is also linked to the strengthening of our military component in this region. The strength of the military will be increasing here. One of the objectives of the master plans and renovation program is to identify where new industries and jobs would appear, including those related to the Trans-Arctic Corridor, where schools and kindergartens, polyclinics, hospitals, roads, and communication networks would be built and housing would be erected. The Ministry of Defense, together with the Ministry of Construction and regional authorities, should address all these issues facility by facility so that we understand what exactly the resources that we need and what are the timelines that are required to support this. One specific feature of Arctic is that the construction is done on permafrost. And this obviously means special requirements to design and reliability of construction. So we need to take into account the changes and potential risks. I suggest that we should set up a special permafrost monitoring center and invite leading federal and regional institutions to support this. And their research would serve as a scientific base for adaptation of technologies to the thawing of the permafrost. I know that the registry of best practices in construction in the Arctic is available, so this experience should be scaled up. I expect that the idea of Arctic multifunctional centers would also be reflected here. That is when social administrative entities, sports facilities, and services are located under one umbrella, within one building, so to speak. And obviously, we should be guided by the opinions and demands of the citizens, people living in the north. You know, people directly state that in the Arctic cities and settlements, they lack the so-called service economy. In other words, facilities for leisure, for family entertainment, culture and education events, and this segment must be developed. We should encourage the entrepreneurial initiative here. We have a special program to support SMEs in the far north regions. It's important to boost its effectiveness. And I would like to ask the government to adjust the parameters of the program and also to expand the list of industries that the initiative cover. We should provide additional opportunities for small companies to bring in soft loans. I would like to say a few words separately on healthcare. Availability of healthcare in the north objectively is lower compared to the central part of Russia, especially in remote settlements. I would like to ask the government to come up with a special mechanism to finance healthcare. In order to preserve health of residents of the north, we have to employ digital technologies. We are to equip mobile vulture units with AI-enabled instruments that would help remotely test human health and diagnose conditions and come up with treatment recommendations. Another sensitive issue for the Arctic and its residents is environmental well-being. Let me remind you that our first forum, what was initiated by the Russian Geographic Society, announced the so-called big cleanup of the Arctic. The idea was to clean up the Arctic from scrap metal, fuel and lubricants, residues and waste. The project, launched by the Russian Geographic Society with the participation of the Ministry of Environment, brought together thousands of volunteers and CSOs, and we will continue this effort. We will ensure a comprehensive preservation of the Arctic zone of Russia, including addressing of such a major issue as cleaning up of the sea districts from sunk boats and ships. Of course, money is needed for that, and I ask the government to think about it, including the issues of financing by year. We will remove technology waste and do remediation for such territories with a focus on improving the situation in cities and settlements. We will do the so-called revitalization of abandoned territories, facilities and lands. We will be thinking about their reuse for the benefit of residents of the Arctic cities. In fact, we pay our dues to the Arctic, but we may not pile up new debts with respect to its unique nature. Taking into account the plans for economic development of the region, it's important to strike a balance between using natural riches and environmental preservation. In order to test new environmentally efficient technologies in the Polar Ural and the Malanenets Autonomous District, we plan to set up a scientific and educational station, Snezhinko, Snowflake, by the end of 2028. Here, an international team of researchers and academics would test green technologies for the Arctic in the field. They would think about their application for livelihoods, telecoms, medicine, and industry of new materials. Dear colleagues, the Arctic is a territory of tremendous opportunities for specialists in any profession, for entrepreneurs, for the youth, for families who have lived here for generations or who moved here recently and plan to settle here to buy or build their own home. We have extended the Arctic mortgages program by 2030. The mortgages are provided at 2% per annum. We came up with softer conditions for borrowers, say teachers and healthcare professionals, are relieved from the length of service requirements. Now, the participants of the special military operation and employees of the military-industrial complex are also eligible for this program. Now, dilapidated housing is another major issue for Northerners, and I would like to ask the government to come up with a plan to address this issue by September 1st, and this plan should span at least 10 years. As you may be aware, we launched the affordable rental housing program in the Far East. Young people who come to the Far Eastern regions who are graduate universities there can find jobs there and rent apartments at fairly low cost. And the rental payments are subsidized from the regional and federal budgets. I suggest that we extend this program to the key settlements in the Arctic so that rental housing becomes more affordable for those who only start their work career in the regions, for those who can live and work here and would love to do this. The program should become effective in the Arctic already on January 1st, 2026. We also agreed to extend the Murayow-Amursky managerial personnel training program for the Arctic regions. This has been accomplished already. I'm confident that such a training should give a powerful start for many promising leaders, and this would benefit both the Arctic and the entire country. One more thing. The North has always been a magnet for bold people, true leaders. One of such devotees, enthusiasts, is the renowned researcher, polar explorer Artur Chilingarov. And I suggest in his memory to set up special grants targeted to support young initiatives within the framework of environmental, educational, and scientific projects in the Arctic. Dear friends, development of the Russian North, overcoming the challenges posed by the harsh nature and reaching new promising frontiers, well, this is something that inspired many generations of our ancestors. Seafarers and Novgorod merchants of the medieval times, explorers of the Arctic of the 16th and 17th centuries, industrialists of the 18th and 19th centuries, scientists, polar explorers, engineers, workers of the Soviet Union, and companies of the modern Russia who launched major Arctic projects in the beginning of the 2000s. And today, North is at the fore of development. It is our sovereign historical choice, which means that the goals that we set and address in the Arctic, the projects that we implement here, should be commensurate historic scale to span decades and perhaps even centuries. We will do whatever it takes to strengthen global leadership of Russia in the Arctic. And despite all the current challenges and difficulties, we will ensure a comprehensive development of the region. We will create a solid foundation for future generations. Thank you very much.